after what was going on with the coronavirus, I did so much research and I was able to uncover, and I believe that this was God's calling to say, shine a light on this stuff. So I have a Rumble channel, and anybody familiar with that at all? If you have, great, thank you. So I've just been telling the truth, and it's cost me in many ways. My wife is not supporting me in this endeavor. But my allegiance is to God. I said, honey, I love you, but, I've got to go this direction. Call me. So anyway, so I'm running because I'm supposed to, and so because of that, we now have an alignment of like minds to create positive change within the school corporation. We know what they're doing. We're exposing the things, what they're doing with the money. We can talk about that later too. We know where they're trying to take God out of the school successfully. Right now they have a gender identity club at White's High School. So we're fighting it. It's good versus evil right now. But I think we've got a pretty good winning team here. But Ken Colbert, so just please push me over the finish line because I know God has a plan for me. All right? Thanks.
My name's Jeremy Heath. I usually describe myself as a happy husband, a blessed father, and an unrepentant American patriot, Trump supporter. It's been kind of rough these last couple of years, being actually all of the above with the way things are going. My oldest is autistic. My youngest has special needs that are physical, and we have one on the way. The more that we work with the schools, we realize that the problem isn't so much as the teachers, as we've always been led to believe. It's always the parents struggling against the educator thing. In our family side of things, we've always seen it as higher than the teachers, because a lot of the teachers, they're real good-hearted. They really want to do what's best for the kids, but a lot of times their hands are tied. So the more that we deal with them, the more we realize that the fight is up on high. Now, in 2017, I left the Republican Party. It was a long string of reasons why. But I ultimately, I didn't think the party could be saved. And it's been very refreshing to see Ken and folks like Ken try to reclaim it and do great things like they've done in this last convention cycle. So who knows, I might actually just hop on back in. But I'm running to try to make a real good change because me and my family, we're going to be invested in the school board and the schools for a long time to come.
Thank you, Jeremy. My name is John Abbey. I'm running for District 2. Have 5 competitors, including one I align with, which would be Julianne Fox. I would endorse her wholeheartedly, and she'll be up next to close out the deal. They put in the way they introduce things at concerts, they put the warm-up bands in order of appeal. Look who gets to go last in the star position. I'd just like to challenge the board's thinking, the public's thinking a little bit as I get in there. I've been a disruptor my whole life. I was a principal at Princeton High School in the last part of my career, and I was not a popular principal with the board or with part of the public, but it was because I thought it was best to set high standards and expect people, teachers, parents, everyone, especially students, to achieve at a high level. And if you set a bar as high as you possibly can, most people will get about 90% of it. They won't give you the 100% all bought in, finish the deal sometimes, but they will give you a good effort to get there, especially if they believe that it's the right thing to do. Well, I set the standards really high at our school, and that did not make me popular, but it made our school better, which was worth it. I didn't want Christmas cards from 16-year-olds. That's kind of creepy. I wanted their respect when they're 32 years old and they have their own kids. That was the goal. That was the powerful part of this. And I'll just challenge voters. I think we have a community of believers here. I see nods and great body language. So I think I'm among friends. But as you share with others, we need to get past the objectors who want to take the easy path. Oh yeah, they're doing pretty good. Have you seen the test scores? We're not doing that good. Do we have civility and responsibility and respect in our schools among our parents and the communities? Some places it's excellent, some places it's not. So I want to challenge the system and make it better, because we have to be intentional about the way we do things. Intentional. And Albert Einstein has one of my favorite quotes. One of my teachers gave me a little plaque thing that you can hang up. Albert Einstein's definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I'll challenge you with this board. If you think it's going so great and we don't need to change anything, then by all means, vote for the 22-year veterans and the 8-year veterans and the 9-year veterans. But if you see problems and opportunities out of those problems, vote for the group here and for me individually, because it's that important. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Julie Fox, Julie Ann Fox, and I am running because I also have a calling to do that. I graduated from Harrison High School. I have a degree in radio and TV from IU, and I ended up going to law school at Virginia Beach and at Regent University. And I, during that time, worked with the American Center for Law and Justice and Jay Sekulow, and I have a real passion for religious liberties. I have a passion for our nation. And in my practices, I have all of my practice. I started at the prosecutor's office with Stan Lemko, and I ended up in charge of the child crimes unit there. I left there to go with Brett Niemeyer to be his public defender in his juvenile court. I work with families now that are children who need services families. So we work to put kids back in homes, safe families. My entire career, my entire life has been spent protecting kids in some form or another. My kids are pretty much grown. My youngest is a senior at North High School. And I'll have a lot of people ask me, why are you doing this now? Your kids are out. Because I have 3 nieces and nephews that are going to be going through the system. And right now, they're homeschooling because of the things going on. And that shouldn't have to happen. Parents shouldn't have to remove their children from the schools to get rid of the things that are going on in the schools, because they shouldn't be going on in the first place. If we had transparency and accountability, I don't believe any of the things that are going on that we all tend to disagree with would be happening. So we need to bring back some transparency and accountability. The behavior even of the board members, you gotta be transparent and accountable for your behavior. So all of those things are the reason that I'm running. I really believe that the church is awakening. And I believe that the governing body of the church, of the kingdom, the ecclesia, needs to step up, and we need to start governing as God intended us to. Ken actually kind of, he's the one that kind of started spurring us along to get us together to do this. So I didn't actually just throw my hat in the ring. I was asked, and that was because he was given my name, and I really wasn't sure I was going to do it. But I'm glad I did. These men are utmost character. I would be honored to serve with any one of them. And yes, John and I are in the same district, and I wholeheartedly endorse him. The incumbent in our group is David Hollingsworth, and he's been there for 4 years. We have Andy Carino that has been there 9 years. And then Jeremy's against Chris Kiefer that's been there 20 years. Yeah, that's way too long. We talk about term limits. That's way too long. We need some new blood. Yes, he is.
District 2 has Hollingsworth, Mike Duckworth, who's the Republican Party chair and has a full-time job, so I'm not sure why he wants a third gig. Julianne and myself, Casey Hillenbrand, who was at the forum, for those of you who were there the other night, at City View, and and Andy Garino, of course, who I work with. It's Andy was an assistant principal when I was an assistant principal here in EVSC. That's district.
Vote for two.
Vote for two. And just to reinforce, because some people either have forgotten or they hadn't voted recently, we vote for each of the categories. You vote for one at large. You vote for one in District 1. And there's your guys right there. At large, District 1. District 2, vote for two. You can do it alphabetically, it won't hurt my feelings. I think we'd like to entertain questions from you, because that's the most important part. We're used to doing speeches and trying to look professional, which is a challenge for at least me. The rest of them do a pretty good job with that. But I would want to take the time to thank the nice lady in the back row who charged us with her prayers at the end of the service. Just awesome. Jane, thank you for that. I was in the hall and it still resonated with me that, God's not going to let us down. He dragged me into this, kicking and screaming at some points. But I had angels land on my shoulders. A couple people in this community have been so encouraging and wouldn't let me fall out. Because it's easier if you do. I am kind of busy, got grandkids, like to read books, and I work out every day. Come on, grow up, he said, as he nudged me from behind. But he sent his angels, and he got the thing with the cartoon devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. And the devil, what do you want to do that for? Geez, that's hard, and you're pretty lazy anyway, and I love that. And then the angels, the little angels around here said, you are the right guy for the job. This is the right time for you. And I just smiled and said, gosh, that's really nice of you. And I kept hearing it over and over until I finally broke down and did the right thing. My wife says I'm a little slow on the uptake, but thanks, Janet, for helping me make better decisions. So, okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Somebody's got to get this started, right? So what recourse? I don't have students, this and that, but so what recourse do we have to slow down this liberal agenda? And you can go with it wherever you choose and whoever. What is our going forward to put a halt to this liberal agenda?
Well, I'll start because I'm the guy with the mic, and I'll toss it up. The rest of them can fight over it. My choice in this election is to go slow and get it right. I don't think I can make the accusation today that CRT is widespread in our schools. That's a liberal Marxist foundation. I think it's there, but I want to find out how deep it is and how insidious it is before we decide what path to take. Likewise, in social and emotional learning, the sexualization of our kids, I think we need to investigate if it's rogue actors. There's a way to handle that within schools. I've gotten rid of sexual predators in schools and took their license when they left. They didn't get to teach anymore, ever. It was my pleasure. But it had to do study. We had to lay our case, and we went to Indianapolis and met with the School Boards Association to make sure we're compliant in all ways so we didn't swing and miss. Because you swing and miss, they get to keep their license and they'll find another job. So that's my idea. And I think most of the folks here are real supportive of that. Ken is an excellent researcher. Jeremy has experiences that bring him forward with strength. I think we can work together. And if we're all four elected, we're a majority of the board. That's how you get it done. Because my presence on the board is nothing unless I'm in the majority or able to generate a majority. So I can talk all I want. If I'm a 3 instead of a 4, my message doesn't get across. So that's my plan. Study, develop policy, act swiftly once that's done. That's what I propose.
No, everything he said, right on board. But the first place to start is that we have to start. Too often we have folks that they don't really want to begin to address anything because they don't want to feel silly. Just like with the big to-do here recently about litter boxes in the classrooms. Whereas it's common sense, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have that discussion because it shouldn't be a discussion. Maybe we should at least, while we're saying that, that's a ridiculous idea, and we're not going to entertain the idea while we're saying, no, obviously that's not going to happen, because 9 times out of 10, when they say, no, this won't happen, a couple of years down the road, guess what's coming with all the flags away?
Jack, in reference to your question, what I see is with the federal government, we do not have to take these federal subsidies. Whenever you take that money, it's tied to contracts. You sign these contracts, you follow the protocols, just like the mask, okay? And again, I've talked about that before, but the point is, the school board needs to reevaluate these relationships. The federal government is dangling this money, and EVSC is 100% of the time taking that in. They don't have to do this. So I would contend that perhaps we educate our students locally. We have the resources through the teachers, the parents. We've got a valuable resource here. The federal government, they should have never gotten involved in education. You know, and so I think we're in this transition period. I think we'll evaluate that as these subsidies come out and say, you know, thank you, but no thank you.
I mirror everything they just said. The law, one of the reasons that I feel like I'm glad to do this, we have an individual in the White House that signed vast changes over Title IX. Because of the tithe between the contracts and receiving the federal government. So we've got to have somebody that makes sure that we're doing everything we do legally. So we don't want to take money that's got ties to those kinds of things. We don't want money that's going to require us to do certain things in order to get it back. I don't think that it's prevalent. I don't think that a lot of the things, I'm with John, I don't think a lot of the things are like glaringly prevalent. I will tell you they are present. I know it from my own student. I know it from the other parents coming to me. We have different sexes using the other sex's bathroom. We have opposite sex changing for gym with the other sex. We have all kinds of things going on. We have CRT going on, or well, yeah. But it's hidden.
Right.
It's gain. It's under gain. It's under different theories. They only use the term CRT when you're talking at college level, university level things. Otherwise, they don't use that terminology. And we all attended, Jeremy was stuck. He had to deal with the fire at the Hercules building. But we, the three of us went to a Right to Life CRT presentation by a wonderful individual that went through that. And so I think we have a decent grasp of what's going on, but we've got to clean it up. We've got to clean it up, and we need to know the boundaries in which, you know, we have to operate.
I'd like to take your question next, please.
We attend school board meetings, my husband and I, and a couple of us. Wondering what change would you make and how important would the change be in the 2 minutes that are allotted us to speak as the public comment portion, which is not telecast or broadcast in any way to the public?
That's right.
How would you change that?
First, I think that needs to be part of the public record. In whatever fashion concerns are brought to the board, it should become part of the minutes and clear to the public where the comments are coming from and then how they're addressed. So you could track back through on December 21st, there was a board meeting and this person brought up this concern, and on February 12th, it was addressed and now resolved, or it was never addressed and egg on our face. That's my thinking. As far as the public input, I think all of you have earned the right to have that. You pay taxes, you send your children to our schools. Why would the board not take public comment as per the law? And the Sunshine Law says that in open session, that record should be all on the record. That's the way I read it, Counselor.
Exactly.
Okay, I love it when she backs me up. That makes me feel a lot better. But I think there may be a concern of the board to just find manageable ways to take public comment. People are emotional. People are driven to bring those points home, and they should be able to. But it may not be appropriate to do it in a half-hour dialogue each person in public session. So what I suggested at the forum, and I've thought about this a lot as a school administrator and one that's been to board meetings since I was a child almost, was that you could have your 2 minutes, and then like in Congress, you can revise and extend your results by submitting your written questions, your written concerns. They become part of the record and must be addressed also. That's the way I would do it, and I've not discussed this with my colleagues, but that's why they do it in Congress, and I hate to use Congress as a model, but in this one instance, I think I can. Thanks.
Personal experience. Being limited to 2 minutes, okay? Effective July 1st, the Senate of the state of Indiana got involved and decided, because it was happening all over the state, that they were limiting access to the public to simply get questions answered from the school board. So that was changed. So I went literally right after that. But prior to that, a year prior to that, I had sent written FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act. I asked specifically for my elected officials to respond. Have they done that? No. Okay, so I think that the point is there has to be 100% transparency. Right now there is 0. So during this transition period, you have to create guidelines based upon, there's going to be a lot of ruckus, during the transition period. So the public has to be engaged. I would not limit them, in regards. 2 minutes is not enough to convey it, especially when you send written inquiries and they still don't respond to you. So I use my 2 minutes to serve them again. Still don't have an answer. But the point is, there has to be transparency. That board works for you. They work for us. We pay for this. And I believe I'm not getting a return on my investment. Okay? So
I hate to be a yes man, but I actually agree with both of these gentlemen. So that's my answer.
I agreed as well. I agreed as well.
This is not an unusual thing for us as a group of people running for the board that are aligned. We differ on some opinions here and there, differ on some approaches here and there, but in the broader scope of things, we are really unified, and that's a sample size that you may want to be interested in, because if we're on the board together, we are a majority, and things change as to the tactics of the board. It becomes what it is, not what it is now. I don't think the board has I think they're fearful. I don't think they're bad people necessarily. They're scared to death that they're going to get caught up. Oh crap, we got CRT, and we told them no, it wasn't there, and now we're embarrassed and we'll get reelected the next time. I think they're scared to death. I only want to serve one term.
Me too.
One term and find somebody better. God bless them. If they're better than I am, then they should run this time. But the bottom line is, if you put a foursome in, you have a majority on the board, and policy and actions will change. So there you go.
So if you four are elected, who will be eliminated?
Oh, they're on the.
Andy Carino will be eliminated because he's an incumbent.
Dave Hollingsworth.
David Hollingsworth,
Bruce
who's,
Keeper.
Andy Green.
Keeper,
I said that one first. It's a
Duckworth,
Duckworth was a prior member.
He was an old, yeah, he's asking to come back on board, as is Jeff Worthington. They both have been on the board previously. Jeff's been off, I think, 2 years. Mike's been off and on, I think.
Yeah, he's 22 years. He was on the board when I was assistant principal at Wright, so it hasn't been since about 2002, I think was his last time on the board. And the times were different then. It was easy to be a board member in 2000, didn't have all these issues. Now they're up to their necks in alligators and they've got a stake sitting on their head. I mean, it's dangerous times. You know, if we get bit, we get bit. We've got to do the people's work.
Amen.
Or we don't need a board. We just need a superintendent to give edicts until they fire him, which I think is dangerous in this condition, wrong and dangerous. But that's what the board's for, oversight and direction of policy. It's not to fire the basketball coach at Wrights because he's just that bad a person. I mean, the individual issue candidates for boards are pretty much over now. We've got to be thinking bigger things, supporting patriotism, developing civil children, responsible children, that, and facilitate the great teachers that we have here to do so. It's not the teacher's fault in lots of cases. I mean, you've got some liberal folks coming out of colleges that are, yes, master, I will bring the CRT into the classroom. Very few of those, though. But there's some pretty smart folks on the other side that have brought critical race theory, social emotional learning in because they believe in the Frankfurt School and Marxism. This is all based in Marxism. You want your country to be protected, watch out where the patriotism gets pushed down.
Please ask.
The last school board meeting that we did attend, they voted unanimously, the school board voted unanimously to implement this program in California. It doesn't sound good, but my question to you is, what can we do about it if you did?
Well, one, if it's from California, I don't trust it to begin with. But I suppose if we get in and it actually is the trash that comes from the heap, we put it right back where it belongs.
If they're contractually obligated, you probably have to pay for it, but you can sideline it unless there's some governmental strings like Ken was talking about, where, you know, if you're required to report to a segment of the Department of Education over implementation of this program, they'll do it. They'll be in compliance, or they won't get their money.
If you're speaking of Panorama as an example, this comes around every year, and every year they've endorsed that. And again, many of you know about the history of that organization and who's behind it. You do not. Okay, the gentleman, I'll recap real quickly here. I have this on my Rumble channel, so I talk about all these if you're interested in getting more detail. But Panorama is basically what's happening is the teachers have to comply with all these regulatory issues, filling out surveys. Surveys are coming from the parents about emotions, feelings, things of this nature. The gentleman that owns that organization is the son-in-law of Merrick Garland, who is the AG of the United States, the same gentleman that said that parents are domestic terrorists.
Yes.
Okay, there's a problem here. I would contend as a board member when that renewal came around on the annual basis, we would reevaluate that. Knowing what I know in my research, I would say, no, I vote no. I don't know how the other people would vote. I would think, hopefully our team would see the problems with that organization. That's not the only one though. There are several contracts that are out there that they just rubber stamp continuously. What I'm finding is it's all about the money. It's all about, it's about compliance. You do these things.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. So Panorama, I would vote no based upon what I know at this point. There is a third grade teacher. She teaches an 8-year-old girl. And so her mother of this 8-year-old girl has decided that she's non-binary. This is that terminology that you don't know if you're a boy or a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy. If you have a vagina, you're a girl. It's pretty simple. So the teacher's been put in this very awkward position by filling out these reports against her will because if she doesn't, then it becomes a disciplinary issue because she's not complying with the school corporation's contract with this organization. We got a lot to tackle, okay? But I think it's one bite at a time as we go through this. But I think educating the public about what's happening, that's critical because we're not aware of what the school board has been doing up to this point. And I'm glad that I'm a part of this and exposing some of this.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't get to get in here until now, so I don't know if this has been addressed yet, but, is the Evansville schools, the school board, do they have to bow to the transgenderism stuff with the bathrooms and the gym lockers and all that stuff, or is that like schools further south? What about EVSC?
EVSC is dealing with that. We did just discuss that a little bit. They are dealing with that. There are different genders in the opposite gender bathroom. And they are dressing with opposite gender.
So is there a law for
There is not. That's part of the Title IX that I was talking about. It's also part of the policy that the board sets. The board sets the policies from which all of these things flow. So, one of the things that, at least back in the day when my kids were younger, there was a list of after-school activities that they could participate in, all of the classes, and I had to sign it and approve that they wanted to participate in any of those classes. I've not received one of those in several years, and I would suggest that that's been done away with. That's a parent's rights.
Right.
It's a parent's right to determine the education of the child, including which activities they participate in. All of those things kind of tend to go together. But your policymakers are the important part, and that's what the board does. Again, there are 7 board members. 7. We have 1 out on a leave at the moment. 2. Yeah. The other 2 are not up for re-election. We have 4 spots, which is the majority, up for election, which is exactly why Ken came up with this platform, so that the parents can know what they're getting when they vote. We need to vote for parents' rights. We need to vote for education, not indoctrination. And I know I've tried not to use that word, but
It's true.
it's the truth. So, yes.
Okay, so when they have, years and years ago, would not allow you to mention anything about the Lord or anything about praying or anything like that, why are they allowed? To me, that's their, kind of their religion, the LGBTQ stuff, because they're pushing it. Why are they allowed to push? And they said that we, Christians, crammed the Bible down people's throats, but yet they're cramming this down people's throats. Now, how can that be done away with? Because it's not fair.
Well, if you're looking for fair in today's times, there's a place up on North 41 at Boonville, New Harmony.
That's not it.
They got conies and elephant ears and rides. I don't know if fair is, and equitable has become a poison word now. So I guess we're looking for citizenship. I think we need to train our kids in the love of this country and the freedoms upon which it was built. I think that the EVSC has really usurped parents in a way that's even more heinous than you might realize. And that is, they've gone to opt out. If you don't want your child involved in something, you have to opt out. You have to send them written notice or a signature that you don't want your child in there. I think the EVSC ought to operate on opt-in.
Right.
You want your child involved in this program, that's fine, but you have to sign off. If it's any way questionable to the parent, you've got a list of things that your child is going to be doing inside school and after school, and they need to opt into that program, not just assume that every parent who doesn't know about it is giving that tacit approval. It's wrong. It's dead wrong. But that's how they're getting by this. You don't want your child to take a survey that asks you got a gun at home, you have to opt out. I think you should have to sign that I'm willing to do that. Because you're the parent, you're the one that's in charge of this child's education in the final scope of things. Sorry, I got a little fired up there for a second. Calm down. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, well, I know that we're doing the Good News Club in the school. We have to have that written paper for those children to come in. Otherwise, we do have to allow them to go back. We're not allowed to keep them if the parents have not signed that, which I appreciate that. That's the parents' decision. But anyways, that is true for us, yes. Go ahead.
But they're not doing that for the
Well,
other clubs.
Yes, I know that.
They're not. Now,
It's discrimination.
back to you, it is, but back to your question. The church has gotten tired and weary.
Yeah.
Okay? So why are they more vocal? Because we've gotten tired and weary, and we're not as vocal. We've got to get revived. We've got to have revival, and we've got to take these things back. The opt-in is the way to go.
Well, honestly, we didn't realize it. That's a sleep on our part. We did
Correct.
not really realize.
Well, to be fair, it's a slow sleep. Honestly, a lot of our problems today can actually be traced back to the early 2000s with a little phrase called compassionate conservatism. Because compassionate conservatives, they got it in their heads. Well, live and let live. We can't judge. This doesn't affect me. And I can't even begin to tell you how many people that I've talked to in my door-to-doors, oh, thank God I don't have children in the school system anymore. It's no longer my problem. Well, it is your problem because your neighbors and your neighbors, it's affecting your community, and it's going to go on to affect the city, the state, and the nation on a whole. So all of the issues that we're seeing nationwide can stem back to our reluctance to actually do something. And I think Julie's right. Right now, we are quiet, but we're actually getting to the point where we're drawing that line in the sand. And we're saying enough is enough, and we're going to take the fight back to them. So hopefully, all the cramming of the stuff down the throat, it stops.
Your vote is the loudest shout. Your vote is the loudest voice in the room. Go to the polls and tell them what you want. You want change in the school board? Tell them. You want to change in your district house seat? Make that move. You want to get somebody out of office? Help find candidates that'll do it.
And watch the polls. Everybody watch the polls. Volunteer if you're able to do that. Everybody's got to be watching what's going on.
Yes. I am an educator with USC. I'm a grade teacher on the west side.
Thank you.
A lot of things running through my mind as I'm listening. And I'm also a parent. I'm a first grader and fourth grader. They come to school with me. I do that for a couple of reasons. One, so I can be more involved with them, and also so I know what's going on in their classrooms and kids and there's lots of reasons. But I guess my frustrations as an educator, I hear you talk about game/sell/UAS. It's changed a lot of times. It really rules our schools. It rules our classrooms. It's hard to teach because of it. You talk about our test scores being horrible, and they are, because we can't teach. The behaviors are so awful. We have to put up with them and document to get anything done. So we can't teach.
Right. We recognize
Just
that.
getting through a lesson is difficult. Hearing the profanities being shouted in our rooms and our kids having to listen to them, breaks my heart as a mom.
Yes.
And as their school mom. It's hard. Being called names myself, being spat at, being pushed and shoved on is not acceptable. And not being able to do anything about it is hard. And not having, being backed up makes that difficult as well.
Yes.
And hearing my children come home and tell me, it's the same things are happening to them. And I take every opportunity to fill out surveys and to voice my concerns.
with both my children. And just to hear what's going on is really disturbing, and to see it on a day-to-day basis is hard.
We hear what you're saying, okay? You would have the support of this board, because right now, we're over the target. We know that the current administration is not listening to the teachers. There's a mass exodus. You see the number of teachers retiring.
Yes,
The frustration of that. It can't attract teachers because they don't want to get involved in this environment. So that is recognized. It has to be frustrating for you because you know what's best for that child in that room. The parent knows what's best for that child in your room. But the administration is not supporting you. Neither is the teachers union. They have an agenda. Okay, we know this. So I think from an administrative standpoint, we recognize the value. We recognize that there's discipline issues going on within the school that they're not addressing. I've said this before. We have police officers in different locations. The kids get into fights. They don't break it up. They fill out a report. Okay? So the point is, hang in there. Okay? You have to push us over the finish line to be able to address these issues. We're being vocal in the community, and we recognize your frustration, what you're dealing with. We support you.
There's such value in what you're doing, and I heard the break in your voice. Hurts me as a former administrator, to be honest with you. I want the kids to feel like I felt in school when I was a kid, and when you were a kid in school, felt safe. You didn't have to worry about, the principal wasn't the favorite guy in the building because he walked with a little bit of swagger and took care of stuff. Not, well, we've got a meeting after school for the Kumbaya Club, and I mean, it's not your role in the organization, and we've got to support administrators and teachers who are willing to hold the line. And we hope to do that as a board. The judgment of our work will be exactly that. Did we make schools better for kids and for teachers at the end of the 4-year term? So that's what we're after.
I want to add to that. One of the things at the school board forum we talked about was the $350,000 that was allocated for exercise equipment.
Oh, yes.
Okay, it needed to be it needs to be to exercise authority in the classroom, so that you have adequate people in the classroom. You don't have things going on in the classroom, and you have another individual there if necessary to help you keep that authority. One of the problems that we have, that I also spoke about this at the forum, we have teachers in the high schools. A friend of mine, he is African American. He was called racial slurs, sent the child down to the administration because and the kid would sit right back. Why was that child not removed into in-school suspension? That is unacceptable behavior. These kids need to understand that education is a privilege. It is a right, but it's also a privilege. If you want to participate with the rest of the kids, then you have to behave accordingly. We've got to put that back in the schools. Otherwise, nobody feels safe.
Right.
And without your votes, we can do none of it.
And I just want to say that's one of the things that I absolutely love about this group is we're all on the same page in regards to teachers as well. We are student first candidates, but we want to make sure that the teachers have the authority and the ability to actually educate. And you'll have folks out there saying, well, these are just right-wing candidates and they care about the families and not the teachers. But honestly, why are we sending kids to schools if we can't trust the teachers? And what we're trying to do is work to build a better network than the one that currently exists. So I was real excited when I found out that all these folks, same page.
Ready for Reggie?
Can I say something? I was just gonna say my sister was a teacher for 15, 20 years, got out of it, couldn't teach her classroom. They forced different things. All she was doing was grading and testing and being forced. It wasn't fun anymore.
Right.
If it's not fun for the teachers and it's not fun for the students, and you're right, that whole behavioral system, I have friends with teachers and they are telling me it is horrible. They have no real control of their classroom. It's being controlled by all the outside influences and the language and the bathrooms. I have students at Rice High School. There were 9 fights in one day. Do you hear that anywhere? Are those school members dealing with that? I'm telling you, when I think about going to the bathroom, they are terrified to go in these bathrooms. My kids, I have my niece that she wouldn't go, and I have teachers that told me these students make them go with them to the bathroom. When you're not safe to go in the bathrooms at your school, and you know that you don't know what's going on in those bathrooms, and you don't want to, there is trauma, truthfully, in some of these schools when you don't know from day to day, and you hear stuff. This poor child plays tennis. He was playing with a teammate who called him a piece of crap, who told him, and he said the other word. And this is a 7th grader. These were teammates. What are we teaching our children? We're not teaching them to be a team and to work together and to build each other up. We are like just destroying everything. I don't even know where we're trying to get to in our schools. We're not trying to unite and teach and to educate. We are trying to indoctrinate to whatever. And I want our teachers and our parents. I substitute taught. I'm terrified of the schools. I've seen kids where I said, put your chair on the table like I asked all the other students. I don't like to do that. I'm like, come on, just do your part. We all have to work together. I'm not doing that. I'm to the point where I want these teachers to know that they've got our support. Because our parents are on this too. And the struggle is real. But we somehow have to get on board and support our teachers.
Yes, we recognize that.
And recognize the role that we're going to play to make everyone safe, and the power that we have to come together and help push them through to where they can teach our kids, because they're doing what we need them to, and they're trying their best to do it. And
Bring the
they're not
paddle
getting that support.
Okay, can I say something real quick before we get off that subject? Everything that they're saying, my granddaughter at Rice High School could not take it anymore, and she had to get out. Now she's being homeschooled. My daughter took the other 2 out because her youngest, had girls approaching her and calling her names if she would not be gay.
Oh my God.
We recognize there's been a mass exodus of the students as well for
And
just
most of them
cause.
have to leave.
I understand.
If something is.
There's passion now developing. I think God's hand, again, I see it. It's happening in the community. I think we're part of it. Okay. However, I thought this was interesting, an observation. None of us were endorsed by the teachers union. So they are, yeah. So they're endorsing career politicians and a radical by the name of Melissa Moore. Again, I've done research. She went through the same organization that Mrs. Amy Ward Smith went through. It's called Hoosier Women's Forward. It's an activist group. At least that's from my point of view. Okay. I think the school corporation across the country can be salvaged and enriched. There are things that we have to do that are going to be very difficult. It's going to be presented to us, including maybe some firings. Okay? So the point is, there has to be accountability. We're not afraid. We're being called to do this. So we recognize what's being said by the teachers, the passion. We recognize there's problems. We also acknowledge that the current administration is not addressing this. I don't know why. I think I do. It's just an opinion, but
We'll know in January. We'll know in January what their intentions are, because we'll use the time from the election, if we're elected, when we're elected, use that period to learn, get our background set.
And then once we hit the ground running in January and form the board, then we're set to go. Then we can move forward. So homework time for us is November 9th through January 1st, or whenever the first meeting is. That's where we can gain a lot of ground. We'll get a lot of information that we'll be able to utilize to make things better.
Yeah, Brianna said that my granddaughter had been taken down rides. She said the teachers could not teach. There was so much going on in the classroom, they can't even teach.
And we'll need to document a lot of that. So those anecdotal stories that are heart-rendering to hear are going to become important to this part of the board. We'll need that information because I heard there were litter boxes in the bathrooms at North High School, doesn't do it. We've got to have Mrs. So-and-so, who's the mother of so-and-so, and we can redact that for our public disposition of it. Evidence has to be a part of it. Yes, ma'am.
How much of the actual curriculum that's being taught and the disciplinary practices that are appropriate within the schools actually tied to the federal money that has contractual language in it?
Well, really, EVSC's discipline policy is a long-standing and sometimes changing document. It's a philosophy. The same vehicles to change children's behavior are in place ad infinitum. I mean, it's been forever. But if the upper administration tells principals not to add suspensions because that looks bad on our documentation, you will not get suspensions, oddly enough. Because these folks want to keep their jobs. And it makes sense. If a teacher gets a directive from a principal that she might not agree with, I see you nodding, thank you for that. It's not her fault, because she has to become employed. She has a responsibility to her family first. We've got to take that burden off of her. We've got to take the burden off of the administrators that think the right way. So that comes from downtown, and inevitably it comes from the board. Because what you don't support overtly, you support by your ignorance of it. So we've got work to do. It's a tremendous job. It scares the heck out of me, to be honest with you. Because, I start to get this pregame butterfly situation going in my stomach. It feels like B-52s flying around in there. It's scary. But we ask for this, we're going to get done what we can get done. Or make a change in the team. So there you go. Keep throwing it back on you, don't I?
And phones and devices. I don't know about the teachers, but I've seen them where they're all tuned out. These students have this ear pod that, the AirPods in. And when I would tell them to work on stuff, and they have those laptops and they have those movies going, and they are not at all engaged in what they're supposed to be at any given moment. And I don't understand how a teacher can even keep up and try to bring everybody in to where they're actually able to learn something anymore.
I think we have time for a couple more questions and then lunch.
Yeah. Okay, so the legislature last year passed a bill that we needed to increase voter participation, get society to be active in governing. So they decided to add a 6th grade civics class. And so they appointed some bureaucrats to develop the standards that we're going to go by in Indiana. So the standards that they developed are very vague, and you can teach Marxism. It does not refer to teaching our founding documents of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So the hope of America, and that we are self-ruled, and that we are an elected republic who has laws that our governing officials have to go by, and how fortunate we are to live in America is not being taught. So my question is, it's already been approved by the head of the Indiana Education, and so they're funding it, they're activating it, and it's coming into our schools in 2023. What can you guys do as a board to look at this program and evaluate the standards that you're being sent that are not going to help the problem that it addressed, nor is it going to teach the true history of our country? Do you guys have anything about that?
As a former principal, I was pretty familiar with what was being taught in my school because I managed by walking around. I took on one of my teachers who was teaching green issues back a few years ago with stale information that had been debunked in some cases, and the Kyoto Accord, where all the scientists signed on. About half of them have signed off now. So I asked him to reconsider the foundation of his teaching, and he did. He made the change a little bit. He didn't get him off his liberal philosophies necessarily, but he did have to rethink what he was doing because he was a scientist. He wanted to be a science guy, but he needed guidance. And I think that's where we need to be is, people that are department chairs, if there are department chairs, team leaders, those type of teachers need to be given the freedom to take a hard look at where the curriculum really is and to guide. And then if there's non-compliance, you take a different tack. But principals have to be brave. Teachers have to be brave. And you shouldn't bully a conservative teacher into teaching liberal stuff any more than liberals should be bullied into something that they just don't believe in. I mean, I get it. It's a human process. But darn, folks, we got a job to do. And we've got to get in where there's enough empowered people to really make the change. Because if we just say, hey, David Smith, superintendent of schools, Dr. Smith, I should address him more respectfully, I guess, but he used to work for me, as it turns out. When I was assistant principal at Wrights, he was a teacher, band director at Wrights. Dr. Smith, we believe as a board that this needs to be taken care of in this way, and we'll expect periodic reports from you on the progress. Now, whether or not Dr. Smith implements this program with fidelity is yet to be determined.
One battle at a time, right?
Yeah. Small, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Ken said it earlier, I wanted to fill it in.
This book here, gentlemen, ladies, was started in our schools. It's called Celebrate Freedom, Songs, Symbols, and Sayings of the United States. I have a friend who worked for Floyd Staub back in 2006. They were hired to tear down one of the school board, ESBC buildings. And in this building, there were thousands of these books. They were told to burn them. So that's probably when it started with this critical bullcrap, sorry.
That is a technical.
I took this to Dr. Smith, I said, Dr. Smith, please teach it. I did the same thing I just told you. He said, oh, yeah, I remember that, talk about that when I was in school. I said, why the hell are you teaching it now? I'm sorry. But, I said, what's wrong? This is what we're about. Will we take this out? What do we expect? I'm sorry, but
Mama's proud with reservations on that. Good job.
Allison, in
Yes.
further comment with what you're saying too, not only are we having an issue with local, but we're also having problems at our state level government. So in regards to some of the legislation coming through that we don't agree with, we have an obligation to push back, okay? And so that would mean in these other positions at a higher level that perhaps there need to be changes made, okay? Right now, the current, my experience is that they're not responsive when you send inquiries about why did you vote this way, I have another point of view. So again, this is the long road here. We have to identify who the problematic areas are for the people perhaps, and then make those necessary changes, okay? That's just a thought I had.
How about one more? The best question of the day is being held somewhere out there right now. Where is it? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is just regarding, plan time for teachers, so I can get this information back to my coworkers. We're required to meet, 4 days out of 5, during our plan time. Those meetings are mostly junk, to be honest, and we don't get much done because of all the things that we have to sit there and talk about. So it's frustrating. We have 40 minutes, look more like 30 by the time you drop the kids off, pick them up, and go eat. So it's more like 30. And we'd like to be able to actually get work done so that we can plan lessons for our kids. We can talk about that.
Sorry to hog the mic, but I've been in schools for a day or two. That plan time was jealously guarded by the union for decades. It was to be uninterrupted, free time for you to plan your lessons, grade your papers, discuss with your colleagues the behavior and benefits of children in your class. Those are all worthwhile things for a plan period. training is to be done outside that planned period of time, in my estimation. So if they think it's so important that we train you in the XYZ program from California, then make the time in the summer to pay you extra to do it. If it's that daggone important, put your money where your mouth is. And pay this nice lady to come in the summer in her shorts and cute top and watch this video and then dismiss it anyway, probably, because it's nonsense in many cases. But folks, that plan time is important to deliver the services that those kids need, which is read and write and arithmetic, critical thinking, not critical theory, critical thinking skills, so they can develop their own ideas and their own opinions and their own thinking processes. To have that healthy respect for America through patriotism all needs to be planned as part of the curriculum, not America's bad. And you know, there was slavery here. Yeah. But it's still a heroic country, the only country that's ever been in wars and not taken territory. I mean, where can you quiz a kid and think he knows that? I think they should. Okay. Where's my soapbox? Thanks for the question. I almost mentioned that earlier, because that and duty time over lunch periods and that kind of stuff, teachers need to recharge. That is a very demanding business. It's 6 shows a day.
And you're not the only one.
Right.
You're not the only one. I had people approach me after the forum, people that I know, and said, we are dying. We have got to have some relief. We've got to have time to do what we need to do.
I'll give you an example, just really quick. One of my students was doing, throwing things, profanity, violent behavior. I wanted to take 5 minutes of recess away from the child. I was told that, that wasn't okay. We weren't allowed to, take away any recess. And apparently walking, my version of taking away recess to walk for 5 minutes. You still get your exercise, your motor skills, your sensory. That's not okay. But if you want him to miss that time, you need to sit with him. You need to use your own personal lunch time to do that. If you want to do that, that's okay. I said, no, I need to recharge. I need 40 minutes away from this child so that I can come back and be the best version of me for him.
Forgiving.
Yeah.
We have a skill level that's known as common sense, okay, all 4 of us. And what you're saying is things that we would incorporate into policies and things. There's adherence, we have to do with some of the guidelines, but common sense is missing right now from this current administration, from my point of view. It's not, common sense is not common.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Just 20 things, and after we're done, I want all of us to pray for. I'm going to ask Pastor Mike to come up to that point to pray for each one of these board members, or to be board members. But I want to say one thing, that we have to truly challenge each other. We all know 5, 10, 20 people that don't know what's going on, do we? I mean, we know, but we know some things about these people that are running. They're fine people, individuals. They have the same values that we have, godly values. Hey, the best we can do is get the word out. We got a week. We got a little over a week to go. Get the word out to as many people as you can. Hey, I thought I invited enough people that the room would be filled. But there's a lot of apathetic people still. They don't know. They're not hearing the truth. But we have an opportunity to get as many people to vote. Do it. Do it. God says to. That's our right. And we should use it. I want you guys to give them another hand. Oh, let's pray for these people.
that they will be board members here in the future.
I was wondering, do you have cards that we can give people?
Yes.
And one thing, Ken, before you do that, when we're done, is about the, getting the picture.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was surprised because I started getting a hold of my other friends from other churches. And they said, thank you for this, because I didn't know who to pay.
Thank you for that.
So there's a bunch that don't know at all. So we all need to get involved with what's going on in the city. With our council, our, our school board, everything. Because we don't know.
Let's do our part. We've heard these wonderful men and women, men and women here today. And we need to do our part. Take some of these cards with you and share it with others. Father, we thank you for these men and women. We thank you, Lord, for John Abbey and Julianne Fox, Ken Colbert, Jeremy Heath. Father, help us to memorize their names and pray for them. And Lord, pray for our community so that there will be a God consciousness, Lord, a return to what made this nation great. And that's trusting you and loving one another, being there, being true patriots. And so, Lord, help us to rise up, do our part. We pray that you would just, Lord, lead and guide these three men and this lady as they run for office, and you bless them with this office, Lord. And Father, we pray that you would cause us to be activated, Lord, to pray, to share with our neighbors and family members. Do our part. We thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all so much.
Cookies and coffee.
Want to use the banner? We have a